Hey, what's up, guys? Harrison here. Welcome back. It's been a minute, about 6 months exactly on the dot. But what's up? I'm back with another video. The first video I put out was a kind of review, explanation, retrospective of my first 6 months as a cybersecurity and information assurance student at Western Governors University, aka WGU. And I promised that I'd come back and make another video after my second term, which would be 12 months in total, completing my first full year. So that's what I'm here to do. To preface this video, I just wanted to say genuinely from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for the amazing reception that the first video had. The video for the 6 month, my first term, it just surpassed today like a little over 2,000 views, I think, which is crazy. I honestly never expected it to do more than 50 to 100 views. That would have been like huge if it got 100 views, right? But 2,000 is like insane to me. And it took a minute. I honestly stopped checking and kind of forgot about it for a second. I was pretty caught up with schoolwork and stuff and life in general. But I checked the other day and I was like, whoa, we might scratch 2,000. And then as of this morning, we have, which is it's really special. So thank you so much. Also, for those of you that actually got in the comments of that video and asked some really awesome questions about things that I completely overlooked. Thank you so much. I was really nice to get feedback, as well as, I also tried to answer those questions as receptively and cohesively and just be as detailed as possible. So I hope I did a good job. If not, this video is going to cover not just the second 6 months, my second term, but as well as the first year, which is inclusive of that first 6 months. And so for those of you that have not watched that initial video, by all means, please do. There's some great information that was talked about in the comments there, as well as I'm sure some stuff that I'll forget to talk about in this video. But for those of you that don't care to watch it, I will talk about the full 12 months, including that video here. So let's do it. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Harry. My full name is Harrison, but I go by Harry on YouTube because it's catchier. Anyways, I am a 22-year-old cybersecurity and information assurance student. I'm currently enrolled at Western Governors University. So my first 6 months at WGU, I want to start at the very beginning before I even started. Gaining admission, right? How do you get admitted to WGU? It is not unlike any other traditional college admissions experience. Although I will say that in terms of carrying and or transferring credits over to WGU, it is a little different in that obviously if you're watching this video, you're interested in WGU. I'm assuming you've seen some bigger YouTubers videos on the whole credit transfer hack or whatever, quote unquote, you want to call it, which is where you go take credits either from other, past university experiences, or else typically websites like sophialearning.com or study.com, I think is another one. That's a strat that a lot of people use to get a bunch of their credits before they even start at WGU. I started at a large SEC state university. I was there for about 3 years before making the transition to WGU, so I did already have quite a few credits to transfer in. However, a lot of my credits did actually not count towards the technical stuff at WGU. That probably has to do with the fact that I was only enrolled specifically in a technical major my last year and a half maybe at that big school. And so because of that, I really covered most of the gen ed stuff when I transferred in, but not a lot of the technical classes. So that's kind of where I was at when I first got started. So my admissions counselor at WGU actually recommended that I go ahead and get the Certified in Cybersecurity certification from ISC Squared before beginning at WGU. There were a few reasons for this. Number one, it actually cut out a class or two. It actually counted as transfer credit, which was huge. And it's a free cert, so why wouldn't you? It's pretty easy for the most part if you already have background knowledge. However, if you're just somebody who's looking to get into cybersecurity, I actually have another video on my process of getting that certification. It's a great beginner cert. I'm not going to talk too much about it here. Go check out that other video. But he actually advised me just to kind of bolster my admissions process, get some more credits really quickly before I started my first term, because once you start, you cannot transfer in any credits. So be very aware of that. So I got that cert and then I got admitted. It was really easy, very seamless process. Didn't have any holdups with it. I did have to wait about 2 weeks once I actually got an admission to start my new term, because terms only start, I think it's on like the first of every month, if I'm not wrong. So I started on the first of whatever exactly 12 months ago was, something like that. Right off the bat, I was paired with a program mentor. And I talked a lot about program mentors at WGU in that last 6-month video. However, I want to reiterate that your program mentor is a huge resource at WGU. It might be your best resource. They're going to be with you your entire academic journey at the school. And so this is a person whose primary job it is their job is you, basically, right? So they're there to advise you, mentor you. And what I really appreciated the most is that they're actually the person that helps you book your classes. So when I was at a traditional state school, the process for registering for classes was such a nightmare. I mean, it's absolute brain damage, right? They make it so difficult. It is usually some sort of like crazy alphabetical last name lottery or something. Honestly, I don't even know how it works. I just know that I'd get an email telling me, hey, you have a, 1 hour slot on this day at this time to register for your classes. And then prior to that, you'd have to book an appointment with your counselor or your advisor or whatever, a month or two ahead of time, because they have to tell you what classes to take. And then even then they have such a crazy caseload that they barely know who you are, and they're reviewing that caseload right before the meeting. And it's a nightmare, right? If you've been to a huge school like I was with like over 40,000 students, you're going to know that, getting your classes booked, depending on where you went, could either be really seamless or it could be an absolute nightmare. And mine sucked. So coming to WGU and literally just booking a meeting with my program mentor, and within 5 minutes, he had told me what classes to take. He had assigned them to me, and I could just go ahead and click the start button. It was awesome. It was so seamless, so simple, so easy. It was a very comfortable process. Now, your program mentor is not the person that you would go to for help with a class, though, right? They are there to help you in a general sense. They're typically going to be somebody with experience in the domain of the major that you're taking. However, if you want help with a class or with a certain course material subject, you're going to want to go to your course instructor, right? Which is basically just WGU's, kind of coined term for professor. When you click on your class, in the top right-hand corner, you've got all the information you could need to contact your course instructor. If you want to book a meeting with them, they've got links there to do so. They've got their office hours. They hold open houses and different Zoom calls. Yeah, so your course instructor is the person that's going to be your go-to to find out or get assistance with anything involving the course material for the class that you're currently taking. When we talk about classes at WGU, you're going to be assigned typically an initial 4 courses. I guess that also just kind of depends on what you and your program mentor talk about, how comfortable you are with the workload. And we'll talk about that more later in the video. But initially, it's about 4 courses required per term, if I'm not wrong, which has to do with your SAP percentage, SAP percentage, which is, I believe it's satisfactory academic performance. WGU obviously does not have a traditional, letter grade or percentage grade completion system. It's all going to be a pass or a fail, right? They have other classifications for it, like if you started it and then didn't finish it, or if you failed the exam too many times. That's all in the handbook with all the other jargon or whatever. So if you want to read that, you can go check it out. To make it really simple, though, you have an initial 4 classes; those are required. If you complete those 4 classes per term, you're cool. That being said, a big draw of WGU is the flexibility, but also the acceleration in regards to that flexibility. If you're somebody who's looking to accelerate their degree, somebody who wants to finish faster than like a degree would typically take, then you're going to want to look into accelerating that degree by trying to speed up how many classes you're taking and or completing a larger course load per term. Before you can take extra classes, your mentor is going to ask you to finish that initial 4. So yes, you can take as many classes in a term as you want. You can do as many as you can complete in one term. But before you're allowed to do that, you have to finish that initial 4. So that is one caveat that you're going to want to be very aware of when you start at WGU. You're going to have to look at what classes are coming up next and take advantage of that premonition to be able to pace yourself accordingly if you're somebody who's coming in with the intention to finish more than those 4 classes per term, which at WGU, realistically, most people are. So those are essentially like the big major takeaways I got from my first term. It was kind of just a process of figuring stuff out, right? Your program mentor is going to walk you through all of this. There's typically going to be an orientation course that you'll have to take first that, I mean, you could complete it in an hour if you really wanted to, just clicking through, but besides the point, don't do that. Pay attention to it. I'll talk about that why later, but yeah, so you're going to know all this when you first come into it. But if you're like me and you kind of rush through the whole introduction stuff just to get to the course material, like the actual classes you want to be taking, you're going to pass over this stuff and it's not going to seem as important at the time. But after my first term, those are things that I went back and read through, and I realized that, okay, this stuff is actually pretty relevant. But anyways, by the end of my first term, which is my first 6 months at WGU, I had completed, I think, taking all the credits I transferred in, as well as the 6 or 7 classes I finished in that first term. Progress was slow. I know. You could finish the whole thing in a term if you're absolutely insane and really wanted to. That's not realistic for most people, but that's about what I finished on top of all my transfer credits. And that brought me up to maybe about a little over a third of the way finished with the degree, which is awesome. And I'll talk about this later once again, a lot of it has to do with your use case, right? Like, what is your pacing? What is your timing? Do you have a timeline? When do you want to be finished by? I was working very slow my first term because I was able to, because I was lucky enough to have the ability to not have to worry so much about when I was finished, as long as if I finished. So I was not trying to rush through, at least initially, and finish as many as possible. I was going at a pace that I found comfortable. So at the end of that pacing, I realized that I'd finished the 4 initial plus an additional 3 to make 7 total. So that's kind of where I was at, a little over a third of the way finished with the whole degree. And that's once again taking those transfer credits. If you guys are wondering specifically like which classes I started with and was working on during my first term, you can go back and watch the initial 6-month video. I don't want to talk about those too much. This is really just a general, broad kind of retrospective about the whole experience. If you're looking for information on the specific classes, I talk a little bit about a few of them I took in that first video, but the whole degree is viewable online. If you want to go over and just check out what the course material is actually going to be, you're welcome to do so. But let's go ahead and talk about the transition from that first term into the second. So getting started with my second term, the process was just as seamless as when I first started at WGU. I booked a time before the end of my first term with my program mentor to kind of go over what classes I had coming up in the second term, as well as what he recommended I start with. So he scheduled an initial 4 classes for me, very similar to the first term. And once the classes were finished, I was welcome to continue to take extra classes, 1 class at a time, to finish as many as possible before the end of the term. So my second term wasn't as successful as my first term in terms of progress. I had several setbacks, both in my personal and academic lives, that did cause me some strain in terms of scheduling. I had a lot less time all of a sudden to work on school because I decided to go back to work part-time. I also ended up moving to a new city, which, that comes with a whole set of challenges in and of itself. But so anyways, to summarize, I had some setbacks. I started working part-time again and I moved to a new city. That set me back a bit in terms of my pacing. I was not moving as quickly, and I ended up kind of waiting until like the very last month and a half or 2 months, give or take, to grind out like the majority of the extra stuff. I took way too long to finish the initial 4 that I was taking. I finished those at like maybe the 4th month, and then kind of waited weeks to really start working on any extra courses. That was lazy on my part. When I realized that, I corrected really quickly and I started grinding like crazy. And somehow or another, I was lucky enough to reach like give or take maybe 2/3 completion overall in the degree by the end of my second term. But it sucked. It was a grind. Without taking too much time, in a general sense, my second term was really just it was a much deeper dive into the varying domains of cybersecurity than my first term was. We covered a lot of very specific technologies. We went into a lot of depth about, the ethics of cybercrime, different, legal frameworks for different GRC topics, stuff like that. At the same time, we went into a lot of depth on, the technologies used in cybersecurity, everything from SIEMs to, penetration testing tools, stuff like that. But that second term, getting to go into like the actual specifics of like what cybersecurity is really all about, right? The stuff everybody really wants to learn. That was pretty cool. I really enjoyed the curriculum. I actually have another video planned to kind of examine the curriculums in the WGU cybersecurity degree, as opposed to a lot of these major schools that are just now starting to come out with specific cyber degrees. So that'll be posted who knows when, but so I won't cover that too much here. But in a general sense, yeah, it was just a really cool term. A lot of specifics, a lot of deep dives, a lot of varying domains of cybersecurity. Yeah. At the end of my second term, I sat down and I asked myself, what have I really taken away from this first year at WGU? And I think the biggest takeaway was how important pacing is. I think if you were to look at the student body at WGU, there is a set of people who are doing it in a very traditional sense. They're coming into it less concerned about when they finish the degree and more concerned about finishing the degree, right? They're not concerned with finishing first. They don't have a specific timeline. They just want to get it done. The other type of student at WGU is going to be somebody who's looking to accelerate, right? Acceleration is a big topic when we talk about WGU's accelerated learning model, right? This is going to be what most of you are probably curious about. So acceleration at WGU, like I said earlier, once you finish your initial 4 classes, you can take as many extras as you want, but only one at a time. So the goal is figuring out how to best optimize your pacing and your learning experience to fit the goal of finishing as quickly as possible. This is not something I recommend for everybody, but I think that for a very specific person who knows themselves incredibly well and doesn't just know themselves, but trusts themselves to actually follow through with that type of pacing, this is a great option, right? It's not for everybody though. And I feel like there's a lot of propaganda on YouTube and social media and even WGU's own marketing where they talk about this acceleration, this accelerated learning. And it's so cool, man. It's awesome that you have the ability, that we have the ability to move through at a pacing that allows you to finish this degree in such a unique amount of time. But at the same time, I think a lot of people struggle when they first start because they come in thinking, hey, I'm going to crush this whole degree in 6 months. And unfortunately, I have to tell you guys, it's just not realistic. If you are somebody who knows yourself well enough to sit there and say, I can 100% no-life this. I can no-life this. I can finish the entire degree in 6 months and get it over with. By all means, more power to you. But I just want people to be very aware of who they are, right? Examine your habits, right? Like, are you somebody who starts things but doesn't follow through? I'm just saying know yourself, guys, right? Like, let's be honest. We all know ourselves. Don't be naive. Are you actually capable of finishing the degree in 6 months or 1 year, right? Can you do it? I'm asking you right now to think about yourself and be honest with yourself. Like, don't sugarcoat it, right? I had to do the same thing when I started. I was hoping to be done in a year and a half, and it was a struggle to even get to this point, right? Because I had to find my pacing. I had to find what was realistic for me as an individual. All of this is really just to say, you need to consider yourself as an individual and how you learn best, what works best for you, and whether or not you're going to be able to accomplish an accelerated pacing before you go and devote, thousands of dollars to getting a degree, which, mind you, WGU is still so much cheaper than a traditional state school. I'm, I just started my 3rd term at WGU this month. And when I finish the degree, I'm still going to have paid less in total than a single semester at the last school I was at, which is absolutely insane. Like, that's obscene. The degree value is huge for the price you're paying, right? But I just want people to be really honest with themselves and say, hey, am I actually the type of person that's able to do that? Am I going to follow through with that level of dedication and personal regulation, right? If you can't regulate your habits, if you can't regulate your timing like that, time management is the name of the game. You need to seriously consider if it's going to be the right decision for you, because there's a lot of other options out there. And I'm not saying WGU, you can't take your time. By all means, you should. I have, right? You don't have to finish that quickly, but just be aware that if you're coming into it with the expectation that you'll be done with the whole degree in 6 months, you need to really sit down and ask yourself if that's honestly something that you as a person are capable of doing. Regardless of whether or not you want to finish traditionally or accelerated, if you're somebody who is able to devote their full everyday schedule to school, Like treat it like a 9 to 5. That's the best advice I can give you. Especially if you want to accelerate, just treat it like a 9 to 5, right? If you're not somebody who's like a living working adult who's doing school simultaneously on top of work, if you're like me and you're a full-time student and you have the privilege and the ability to be able to do school full-time, treat it like a 9 to 5, right? You're going to be working in the future anyways. Like, what's the point of getting a degree if you're not going to work, you know? So it's good training in terms of time management. And then also it just helps you keep the right pace, right? And the flexibility is great. Don't get me wrong, but it's all about moderation. You know, don't take advantage of it, because the moment you take advantage of it and you start slipping, that's when you fall behind, right? That's when you fall into kind of a slump with your school progress, like I was in my second term. So anyways, those are more or less like the key takeaways from my first 12 months, my first year, 2 terms at WGU. If you have any questions at all, by all means, drop them in the comments. I'm so happy to answer them. Don't hold back. I'll do my best. I'm not an expert. I highly recommend that you talk to WGU yourself to find out A, if it's the right school for you, and B, get actual professional help from people that are, you know, employed by the school to give you that help to answer your questions, because I'm no expert, but I'll do my best, guys. Anyways, yeah, other than that, stay safe. Thank you so much for watching this. If you took anything away from this at all, even one person, that makes the whole experience worth it. So yeah, guys, stay safe. Peace out.